We are going to start today's session with a conversation with B.V. Jagadeesh, Managing Partner at KAAJ Ventures. B.V. is a very, very well-known, very accomplished entrepreneur in Silicon Valley, and I've known him for a very, very long time. And great to have you here, B.V. Nice to see you, and I look forward to catching up.
Absolutely. It's been a while since the two of us met, and
Yeah.
this is such an amazing initiative that you have, and this is very much aligned with many of the things that even I talk about in public, as well as in many of the other speeches that I give. So it's very much aligned with what I'm also thinking. That's very nice.
So, Jagadeesh, take us through a little bit of what you're planning or doing with KAAJ Ventures, both historically as well as looking ahead. What is the vision? How are you positioning the fund and your activities currently?
Yeah. So just a little background on myself. I came to United States back in 1982, and I started my first company in 1993, which is Exodus Communications, where we pioneered the concept of internet data centers. So pretty much all of the internet companies at that time used our infrastructure in order to reach out to millions and actually billions of people around the world. And we took the company public in 1998, and we scaled almost to $1 billion within about 6 years after we started the company in revenues. And in 2000, I left Exodus to start NetScaler, and NetScaler, because of the post.com crash, we went through lots of ups and downs, and after re-navigating the company, we managed to scale that company as well and got to a stage where we were almost like $60 million in revenue, and we got an offer from Citrix at that time in order to scale the company to the next level. So today, NetScaler is almost like over $1 billion plus in revenues for Citrix, and it's one of the main cornerstones for Citrix product lines as well. So I'm very proud of all the work that we have done, and the jobs that we have created over the years. So with that experience, and then later on, I tried one or two companies, and interestingly enough, one of them was a very high risk kind of a company called Three Leaf Systems, and because of technology challenges and market challenges, we actually failed in that company, and that was a great learning experience for me. So I have success, I have failure, which has helped me to learn both sides of the coin as well. And using that, I just wanted to apply my experience to invest in next generation of entrepreneurs rather than myself getting involved in yet another company. So because of my infrastructure and enterprise kind of a background, I've been primarily focused in investing in next generation of entrepreneurs, building these enterprise infrastructure companies or enterprise software companies. So that has been the primary focus over the last 10 years.
And what stage do you like to get involved in? Are we talking, since you first started doing this, or I first started doing this, the industry has evolved quite a bit. Now, of course, people are doing pre-seed, seed, post-seed, pre-series A, small series A, large series A. It's like the whole segmentation has happened. Where are you playing? What's your comfort zone?
Most of my investments that I have done are all, treated like a seed investment, right? I've been the first person to write the check for many of the companies. Companies like Net Magic Solutions in India, where I wrote the first check, or over here, a company called Yodlee, which went on to become IPO as well. I was probably the very first guy who wrote the check, being inspired by the founder. So it's also interesting that you talked about this pre-seed, seed, mini seed, small seed, and all of that. So what we have done in the last 1 year or so, a bunch of us who worked together in the past, we have come together to start a seed fund, kind of it's not a real fund, because we don't really have any fees or we don't really have any carry. So a bunch of angel investors, we have come together, and it's called SV Quad, Silicon Valley Quad. And we want to invest, think of almost like a seed plus, where we want to invest up to $3 million. And the purpose of doing this is that as I was doing, these seed investments, I kind of realized that a lot of these entrepreneurs, half the time they end up actually spending to raise money, because whatever the seed fund that we give is not adequate enough for them. And as the company starts to pick up momentum, the entrepreneur has to be continuously on the road to raise the money.
Yeah.
So we felt that, based on the experience that all of us had, we felt that if we can give enough money for the entrepreneur so that he or she focuses primarily on building the business to an extent where it is significant enough in terms of revenues, especially like what you're saying, million entrepreneurs with $1 million revenues. And if you can get to that $1 million plus kind of revenues, it becomes much easier to do a Series A or a Series A plus, or whatever that is, right? So this way, the goal is that our money, the money that we are giving, which is $3 million, should last for about 24 months. And the entrepreneur essentially must have a story to start to pitch by the 18th month, because it takes about 3 to 4 months to raise the money. So that means by 18th month, you should have got to a stage where you have, this kind of revenue, $1 million or $2 million or whatever that is, with some marquee customers and with a good management team. And that really will help the entrepreneur to raise the Series A. So we have now upped our game to invest up to about $3 million. And we do about eight investments in a year.
Okay, great. So in terms of geography, you said you have invested in India, you've invested in Silicon Valley. What is your group's investment thesis vis-a-vis geography? I understand it's enterprise, I understand it's deep tech, enterprise tech kind of stuff. What about geography?
Geography, primarily because of the fact that I like to spend more time with the entrepreneurs, and because of the fact that I live here. I like to do more companies out of Silicon Valley, although my heart is still in India, and I like to help entrepreneurs in India as well. So I do, at any given point of time, I do have about 2 or 3 companies in India. And I just want to limit myself with that, because otherwise it starts eating into my morning times and evening times, which is very important to me for my own other activities that I have. So because of that, I limit my India investments to about 2 or 3 companies. And then the remaining, whatever companies that I've done, both through KAAJ Ventures and now through the Silicon Valley Quad. Silicon Valley Quad is primarily centered around investing in Silicon Valley-based companies or US-based companies.
Now, I want to comment on this India Silicon Valley corridor. If you're investing in enterprise-facing companies in India, most of them are operating in a SaaS business model. Most of them are doing global tech. Most of them are trying to get into the American customer base. So eventually they become Silicon Valley companies, or at least soon enough they become Silicon Valley companies. That's what you're facilitating anyway, right?
It's very true. It is very true. But the good news is, because of the fact that, unlike 10 years ago, India today is also a destination market for many of these companies. So both on the enterprise segment, as well as on the media and internet-centric kind of companies, there are enough number of companies for these enterprise products to actually experiment and then win those customers. So this way, in the beginning, right? The first 20, 30, 40 customers, you just focus on the Indian market and get your product completely stable enough.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that later on, when you move to the US, right, you're not debugging your product at that time.
Right. And you can get to $1 million ARR with Indian customers. We see that all the time in our, ecosystem.
Yeah. Not in all segments. Not in all segments.
Not in all segments. No, not in all segments.
But in some of the segments, definitely you can get to. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And now talk about these companies that you've invested in, whichever, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 case studies where tell us about how you met them, what you saw in these companies, what did they have that prompted you to write the check so that we can get a little bit of a feel for how you think about these companies and what really captures your imagination.
Yeah. So take, for example, Nutanix. Nutanix is one of the companies that many of you know that went public about 3 or 4 years ago, and they have pioneered in the concept of hyperconvergence. And the founder, Dheeraj Pandey, he basically approached me through a investor that had already put some money into the company, and that's how I got involved. And he is very smart thinking actually early on itself, because he was a first-time entrepreneur and he wanted to surround himself with people who have been there, done that kind of thing, so that he wanted mentors who can help him guide through this whole journey. And that's how I got involved with Nutanix early on itself, almost like in 2011 timeframe. And another company which is currently...
One second, Jagadeesh. When Dheeraj came to you, he was a first-time entrepreneur. What did he have? I mean, there are so many first-time entrepreneurs coming to you. What did Dheeraj have that convinced you that was different and that was special? Dheeraj, of course, I know Dheeraj. Dheeraj is a very special entrepreneur. He's done a fantastic job. But when in 2011 he was starting, what did you see in him that showed you that spark?
I think basically what you look for in an entrepreneur at that stage, right? Because product is not there, team is not there yet, and customers are not there. So what you look for at that time in the entrepreneur is a clarity in the vision of the product that he or she is building and the market that the product is going to go after, and very good clarity in clearly understanding as to why you are solving this problem and what differentiates you from many of the other products that exist in the market, right? And in his case, it was very clear that given this whole hyperconvergence of bringing compute, storage, network, all of them into a single environment, and the example that he took was centered around this whole Google file system. And Google has done it itself because they have thousands of engineers who can make that thing work and then scale it. And his whole thesis was that a solution like that is equally important to an enterprise that don't have all those type of resources. And Nutanix will become that company that simplifies the way how a concept like a GFS can be brought into the enterprises, right? And that was the selling point. So which means you now have a key differential in the product that you are building with either a NetApp or EMC, which all were doing in a very traditional manner back in those days. And here is a brand new thinking, and the team actually understands how to build this product, and the market seems to be pretty intuitive, right? And now it's a matter of building the product, and it's a matter of figuring out how to find the go-to-market, right? And that is where the team actually excelled in figuring out the early market adoption of this whole VDI space, the virtual desktop initiative space, right? And that became their early market, which is where they penetrated, and then they slowly started to scale to all the other applications within the enterprise.
And very early on, you had enough confidence based on your discussions and based on Dheeraj's background that they could build this product.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Given his background and his other co-founders' background, Mohit Aaron and Ajit Singh, very evident that these guys really understood how to build this complex product.
So, the journey that you are discussing is the journey of a first-time entrepreneur doing a fast startup. Nutanix was not a, lean startup, but per se. So that's a space where I think first-time entrepreneurs always have difficulty. So it's great to hear the Nutanix story and how the role that you played in enabling him to get to his next level. Because we always hear that, oh my God, it's very difficult to raise money for a fat startup where I don't have the money to hire the engineers to build this product. It is going to take some money to build this product, but I'm a first-time entrepreneur. No one wants to invest. This is a recurring theme. This is one of the biggest themes you'll hear in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is another company that I have funded, again, in the cloud space, which is a current company called Tetrate, which is also equally complex product as well. And these founders came from Google and from Twitter, who have sort of built an open source kind of a product. And this company is called Tetrate. And Tetrate brings this whole load balancing, which is the NetScaler product line that we had built, into the cloud, given the complexity of how the applications that run in the cloud today, especially in multi-cloud sort of an environment, including running within your own data centers, and how do you balance the load across these applications? And these guys had developed and they had built the open source kind of a product. And that's what gave the confidence to me to be involved with this company. And it's fascinating to see how much interest is there amongst the investment community to invest in this company, as well as the customer base as well, and how methodically these guys are executing in terms of winning the early set of customers and then expanding that into a next set of customers. Really very simple entrepreneurs, but with clarity to the core in terms of the problem they are solving and the markets that they're going after.
And so they went to market in the beginning as an open source product and already got a bunch of customers?
So these guys had built the open source as part of Google and Twitter. So they were the original builders. And then they thought that a product like that is important in the enterprise segment, right?
I see.
With more functionality associated with this product. And at the same time, even the open source that many customers are using needs support as well. And it requires very, very high caliber and high touch kind of engineers who can support the product.
So that go-to-market strategy of something already validated with an open source model is very attractive to VCs these days. I've talked to a number of VCs who are looking for that kind of businesses. So
Exactly.
Very good
in fact, now the company is very clearly executing on the strategy that we talked about almost 2 years ago with the team, where you support more and more of these open source adapters. And at some point of time, you start switching those customers into this enterprise product that the company has built. So now you will have validation with your existing customer base, providing an open source support. And at the same time, because you have a relationship with the customer, that you can start expanding, right, by selling to the same customer about all the enterprise functionality that the company has built. So now you upgrade the customer, right, to the enterprise product the company has built.
Yeah, very good. Excellent. Is there one that you have done from India that you would like to discuss a little bit, just to understand the process and the nuances of an Indian company working with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let me take an example of a company called Flutura. So these Flutura guys, they used to be employees of Mindtree, and at that time they approached me through some connection, common connection, and they hadn't even started the company at that time, and they were really thinking of getting into this whole analytics space, and analytics space in heavy industrial engineering areas. So because of the complexity of the equipments, right, when customers are investing millions of dollars, especially in oil and natural gas or large scale manufacturing and so on and so forth, uh, identifying the parts in these equipments early on through these analytics, right? That machine to machine learning kind of a thing. So these guys, even though they came from a services background, but they had the ambition, they had the desire to get into a product business. And at that time, I was also very keen on supporting these Indian entrepreneurs who were looking at building these enterprise class product companies. But I knew going in, I knew there is going to be a challenge with these entrepreneurs because their whole background was services background.
Services, yeah.
And people coming from services background and adapting that into product building is a very complex thing. I mean, just to give you a simple example, they did not even understand at that time the role of a product management, because for them, from a services background, right, they think that they understand what needs to be done. That's because somebody else, the company that is giving them the business, has done the job of the product management, defining the product functionality, defining the roadmap, and understanding who the early customers that you want to go after, and so on and so forth. So bringing the need of the whole product management thinking and getting them to understand that, and then slowly focusing on certain markets rather than boiling the ocean kind of a thing. So guiding them in the early days, the importance of the focus, the importance of figuring out what markets you want to build the product for. So it's been an interesting journey. And as you said earlier, we had to move that company to the United States almost like 3 years ago or so, because this is where the market for a product like that. And we did have some initial success in India, but majority of our success is now coming primarily from the United States and European countries.
Jagadeesh, this bootstrapping products using services is a theme that we've done a lot of work on in 1 million by 1 million. We have case study after case study of really successful companies, but it requires focus and it requires commitment to becoming a product company.
Exactly.
And however, this dichotomy of first-time entrepreneurs trying to build a fat startup where product building requires, investment, bootstrapping using services is one way that people are bridging that gap very successfully. We're seeing this constantly.
It is, because what happens is, for a first-time entrepreneur, fundraising is a major issue.
Yeah.
Right? Because nobody wants to give the funding. And at the end of the day, the entrepreneur has the dream to build his or her own company. I mean, that was the case even for us, right? As first-time entrepreneurs in 1993, when we started the company, there was nobody to fund us. So what did we do? On the side, we started a services company. Yeah. And the money that we saved out of that is what we invested in Exodus Communications. And then once we got to a stage where we were about $3 million in annual revenues, is when the interest from investors actually got created. And that is when the funding happened for us.
Yeah. So I'm very happy to hear this from you, that you have experienced that, and I experienced that as well in my early journey. And I purposely, because we based the whole program on case studies, it this theme of bootstrapping using services kept coming up early on in our journey with 1 million by 1 million. So then I really looked into that very carefully and, basically put a methodology together of how to do that and how to train people to do that. So now, we see this all the time. We have at any given time in our ecosystem, there are tons of these kinds of companies.
Yeah, I mean, my advice to these entrepreneurs who are coming from services background into the product background is definitely doable. It is a little bit of a mind shift that they have to undergo, and make sure they emphasize on the importance of the product management and the focus of few markets that you want to build this product for, especially in the early days. Right? Don't go try to boil the ocean. Don't go to every market. So it is that very clear focus, because in services business, it's almost like, okay, anything, bring them on. Whatever comes, I will take it. It doesn't matter whether you are financial industry or manufacturing or healthcare.
Yeah.
I don't care, right? I'll take on any product because somebody else has done the work of bringing it to the market. So here you have to really think very clearly that I have to focus on what market I'm building this product for. And that is where the exercise that they need to go through. And clearly, I think we can build fantastic companies because you don't really have to depend on early stage investments.
Right. Well, I think the other thing that we see as problems, recurring problems in those kinds of companies, because technology is the comfort zone, people build all sorts of things. But really, you need to build one thing well and sell it a lot. They build something for here, something for there, and all of them they start calling products. But you don't need that many products. You shouldn't be doing that many different uncorrelated things. You should be doing one thing and one thing well and selling that one thing to lots of customers. That's how you become a product company.
Exactly, yeah. I actually teach a course on entrepreneurship, and I encourage especially the entrepreneurs who are coming from services business. So twice a year, we offer that with this incubator that we have called FalconX, and ask them to subscribe to that and get the information about when the class gets offered.
Yeah, and if you need additional material on that, we have published our Bootstrapping Using Services course on Udemy. It's very inexpensive, and you can use that as well if you like. Lots of case studies.
Yeah, I mean, my whole goal, right, is to help these next generation entrepreneurs so that they don't need to make the mistakes that we made. Let them go make new mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, very interesting conversation. Let's listen to an entrepreneur next.
Very nice. Look forward to